Good evening. I am Lisha Dore, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to another episode of One, where we bring to you some of the best minds in Trinidad and Tobago. Today, we are taking a closer look at the future of agriculture and food production in Trinidad and Tobago through the lens of agro-processing. And for those of you who may not know what agro-processing is, our presenter tonight is going to do an excellent job of explaining that concept to you. So we are in store for a very educational presentation tonight. Our discussion follows the official opening of the Brechin Castle Agro-Processing Facility in Couva on May 9th by the Honorable Prime Minister Kamala Prasad Bissessa. And this was done during the official visit of India's Minister of External Affairs, the Honorable Subramaniam Jaishankar, to Trinidad and Tobago. And there was a lot of excitement. I believe he came for 3 to 4 days, and so much was done during that period. So we're truly grateful to India and the Indian government for giving us the support that they have been given to us in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, the state-of-the-art facility was outfitted through $1 million, a $1 million donation from the government of India. And it features 3 automated stainless steel production lines capable of processing locally grown fruits, vegetables, and root crops. The facility is expected to strengthen agro-processing capacity, improve food security, reduce dependence on imported food products, thereby reducing our exorbitant food import bill, and of course, create new opportunities for farmers, entrepreneurs, and exporters across the country. To help us unpack the importance of this development and what it could mean for the future of agriculture in Trinidad and Tobago is none other than my co-host, agripreneur and consultant and farmer, Dr. Donny Rogers. So I would like to extend a warm welcome to you, all our viewers who are joining us on Zoom and social media. I'm seeing the regular crew coming in. It's good to see you all. I know we haven't, for various reasons, we didn't have the program for a couple of weeks, but it's good to see everybody coming back onto the Zoom as well as the social media stream. So welcome. As I say every week, we aim to make the session as interactive as possible. So please participate on the chats, raise your hand if you want to make a contribution. Feel free to share your comments and questions as well on the chats. So without further ado, I want to pass you over now to our presenter tonight, my co-host, the esteemed Dr. Donny Rogers, who will give us his opening remarks and carry on with his presentation. Donny, over to you.
All right. Good night, Lisha. Good night to our listeners and everyone who's joining in. First and foremost, we'd like to wish the Muslim community Eid Mubarak on the occasion of Eid al-Adha tomorrow. I know it's a very significant occasion, so our greetings go out to the Muslim community tomorrow. So I'll just go straight into it. And before I start, I mean, usually, Lisha, we talk about agro-processing and we deal with root crops and fruits and vegetables, right? We don't ever deal with seafood. We don't ever deal with things that comes from the ocean, right? So, I do some work with the UN, and on this weekend I would have entertained a couple analysts from the UNDP's office in Belize. And I've been talking to them about it.
Just hold on a minute. I am seeing a comment here that there's no audio. Are people experiencing audio difficulties, or is it just one person? It's only one person I'm seeing that comment from. So I think we are.
It's probably their internet connection.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, I've been talking to the UNDP's office in Belize, to the analysts and the professionals there for a little bit, looking at how the successes of various countries could influence our positive development. Um, and I want to show you a sample pack of a product that I got over the weekend. Actually, two things. But we'll start with something in the I wouldn't really say seafood, but something that comes from the sea. And we are accustomed to sea moss here. We all know it, sea moss. Have we ever seen sun-dried seaweed? And this is the packet comes in. It's in powdered form. It's a very nice, we have these packs here. So it's not, we are not going to reinvent the wheel if we were to look at it. I will send you later some of the videos as to how this is harvested. And a product like this can be used in coastal areas for coastal villages, and those in and for those in those sometimes far-fetched, far-reaching communities to be used as a poverty eradication type exercise. Because how this is planted, it's in very shallow waters. And I should have sent you the video. You would have played it while I was talking. Um, and this is something that, I mean, seaweed has a lot of health benefits. In Belize, it's used in their drinks and their porridges and stuff like that. And if you Google the benefits of seaweed, not sea moss, that is totally different. It is something I think there's a very niche product that we could get into in the coastal areas. And even when you look at this, there is definite potential for exports throughout the Caribbean and the wider region. Another product, and I wanted to show this product because of the packaging. We have local coffee, but look at this pack. A foil-lined pack, very attractive. And surprisingly, this pack came from one of the smaller processors in Belize. Now, I ain't knocking anybody, but granted, our sector is now starting to see the turnaround. But this is to show that we don't have to think, in the regular way that we are. We processing coffee locally, and you see, I mean, obviously for cost and availability, putting it in the clear plastic bags with a label. This is just showing that we could think outside of the box a little bit and start to probably bring down some nice packaging. And these things could be exported. This is from Belize and it reached Trinidad, you know. So this is to show that even the simplest of products can reach anywhere. And it has the potential to be marketed anywhere. All it takes is the right approach. And I think products like these, especially, the seaweed, and I had to look at it because our customs saying sea moss. The seaweed is something that I don't think we've really heard of it in Trinidad. Sorry to say that, but I really don't think we've really explored this as an alternative or as a section of the agricultural sector that we could develop, and even develop to the extent where the initial efforts being placed into it can be focused as a poverty eradication exercise or poverty eradication type implement to look at the creation of sustainable livelihoods in remote areas that may be, along the seaside. And, the funny thing with exercises like,
Let me jump in,
I'm not
right?
hearing you, Lisha, sorry.
Are you
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
you hear me now? Yes. No, I'm saying
Yes, I'm hearing you.
let me jump in, right? Now the seaweed, you see the
Mm-hmm.
old people, they would know about the seaweed, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I would heard my grandfather, father, and so on talking about seaweed and all that you could do with it and etc., right? I want to ask you a question as you
Yeah.
of talking about products such as this that has potential, right? So let me just ask you a question one time. What types of local products do you think have the strongest export potential regionally and internationally?
Lisha, I think because of where we are suited, almost everything that we can do has a strong potential to be positioned as an export item. And let me tell you why. If we look at nutraceuticals will be things like turmeric, sometimes I think maybe ginger to an extent, but specifically turmeric, moringa, and things like that, right? The European Union will give preferential access to products coming from countries like Trinidad for these items, primarily because we don't practice too much or very little, if not any at all, deforestation to develop agriculture, right? So countries that don't have an issue with deforestation generally will get preferential access to the European Union. And anybody who has an idea about the European Union will agree that nutraceuticals are a huge growing market in the European Union. And I think those who want to get into it should get into it now, so that the potential for development and growth can be secured in the early phases. So, I mean, if
you're using a word nutraceutical, which I do believe maybe a lot of our audience would be familiar with, right? Do you care to explain what a nutraceutical
okay,
is?
so there's pharmaceuticals and there's nutraceuticals, right? Pharmaceuticals would be, the man-made type drugs, right? And we're just talking plain here. Sorry to use the big word, but I see word that, they will go with. Nutraceuticals will be the natural type remedies to something. So, as I said, turmeric, we all know about the health benefits of turmeric. We all know about the health benefits of moringa. So those two things are very popular in Trinidad. And that's why I decided to use those. I mean, there are many other plants and, herbal type medicines, but we ain't going to do the herbal side of things too much, I'll stay in my lane, right? But things like that really have a potential for development. Even if we look at India, turmeric and moringa, huge products in India, so there is a definite potential for development. I believe that when you get into the marketing of things, your value proposition and your product differentiation would play one of the most important roles in that. Value proposition, in simple terms, nice packaging, right? Good pricing and those sorts of things. That's just to give an example of it. So to answer the question, I think generally most of what we produce, for example, again, let's look at, sorry to call the business name on advertising for anybody, but we're giving credit where credit is due. I don't have any of the packs here, but it's in the cupboard. I can't really go for it now. But Novo Farms, everybody know about the tomato choker in the pack that you just add hot water. Tomato choker, bygone choker, pumpkin soup, green seasoning, corn soup. At the last Agro Expo, they launched oil down in a pack that you just add water, right? When we look at that, and that is value proposition, right? You don't need refrigeration to have these things stored and shipped. So the shipping now is cheaper because they're not using refrigerated containers or reefers, as we call it. The handling of it is cheaper to handle because there is no special care for it. And it's something that, I just usually have it in my house. Even getting corn soup now like that, right? You're getting dal like that and all, So the value proposition in that is very high.
Yes, so basically what you just spoke about, it's a powdered form of the, we call it a takari, tomato choka,
Right,
choka. So it's
yeah,
in a,
takari in powdered form, corn
and you
soup in powder form.
add hot water and then you get,
You just add hot water in it to the consistency that you want, and that's it. Yeah. So I'll get one day. So I'll speak about an event that we're going to have in a couple of weeks. and I'll talk about that afterwards, right? And obviously, you'll be covering, so you'll do some videos, and but I'll get to that a little bit later at the end of the program.
Yes.
So when we look at products like that, so you see now we're talking about tomato choker, baigan choker, corn soup that is synonymous to Trinidad, oil dung, breadfruit oil dung that is synonymous to Trinidad, green seasoning, pumpkin soup. Those things now become an export item. So to answer the question, that is why I said anything, almost anything that we do has the potential to become an export item. It's just about your positioning and your value proposition, right? So, I mean, I hope that answers the question. No, it just takes sometimes a little bit of ingenuity, a little bit of thinking outside of the box, as I opened, tonight's session speaking about. So, just the novel
Donny,
products can be covered.
to yourself,
Right.
what happened, but I'm just going to say that those powdered chokers, I think it was so innovative. I mean, it
Yeah.
was like it was a great idea. I don't know how successful it is.
It's very successful. Let me tell you something. Doing that, and I'll be honest with this, I know the owners, the local market or the local farmers having difficulty supplying. The
Wow.
demand for the end product is so high. All right. So my daughter just got some of the packs to me. So instant pumpkin. Oh, and I'm not advertising for the people. I'm just showing you how it is, right? Don't get me wrong here. Instant pumpkin, instant callaloo, right? Um, instant baigan choker, right? And trust me, I mean, you would, or they even have meat tenderizer as well, right? So now, as I say, I'm not advertising for the people. It's just I use their products. And for the question that you had about what do we do that could be positioned as an export item, we see in baigan choker is an export item. Whoever thought that baigan choker going to be an export item? Um, where is it? Pumpkin, pumpkin takari is an export item. Whoever thought about that? 4 or 5 years ago, whoever thought that would happen?
Let
Right?
me ask you a question. Is that an example of agro-processing? Because one of these things that,
Agro-processing are the best.
okay, so
Yeah.
that,
Agro-processing and ingenuity or innovation at its best.
right,
Right?
right.
Because now you don't have to have old ice cream container in your luggage when you go in New York and Miami and wherever again. You buy a few pack of tomato choker and you take it with you because it tastes like the same thing,
Okay.
right? I have toured their facilities and I could tell you the tomato choker is made traditionally with the roasting of the tomatoes and everything like that. When you taste it, you get the same taste. You get the same taste as if it made home and it roasted on your stove or your fireside or anything like that. Right? There's no difference in it. So the innovation that went behind this, as simple as that innovation is, it created a huge demand for produce. And I'm telling you right now, the owner of Novo or the management team, they can't get enough on the local market. So as it stands, there is a huge demand. But when you're supplying companies like this, we are talking about contract farming, we are talking about guaranteed supply, and I went into details in this before. In order for us to be competitive on the international market, we can't have a relationship with farmers where 1 minute you get for $2 a pound, and next minute you get for $40 a pound. That can't work. There is a guaranteed price system that is throughout the year. And personally, to me, it's a very fair price that they offer for all the different items. And there is the ethics involved when the price is probably 50 cents, like years ago, tomatoes reached 50 cents retail, 50 cents retail, right? They will still offer their price, but when the price is $20 a pound, the farmer should still be ethical and still supply the people because you get a guaranteed price throughout the year. So, um, and these things can work, and the guaranteed markets are there, right? So I will start up with that by saying it's a huge potential, right? And my daughter brought it. I don't usually advertise my business on this program. I don't, but
No, but we needed to see then what is an example of
right.
agro-processing.
So
That is,
right. So I'll show you all, and this is for the first time. So I'm a dairy processor. I do dahi in powdered form,
wow.
shelf stable without refrigeration, right? And this was one of the first packs that we did a couple of years ago, and it's still good, right?
And
You are getting dahi.
shelf life of that.
So it's 2027.
Wow.
Yeah, 2027. I'm looking at the. I'm not too sure if you all could see it, but 2027 is the because inside of it you have the oxygen packs and stuff like that. Sorry, the silica packs that actually remove oxygen. So when you look at it, and that's why I say almost anything that we do can become an export item,
Okay.
right? And you've seen it from pumpkin takari, bygone choker, and you see it with dahi, right? So that will answer the question as to what we could do. And I think I'll show you a wide variety to show the exact potential because there's so many people in cottage industries. COVID created a lot of cottage industries, and a lot of them failed, unfortunately. But I think that the potential for everyone to succeed is present. You just have to position yourself and look at your value proposition and look at your product offering. Maybe you need to tweak something or do something a little differently or look at something from outside of the box. This
Mm-hmm.
is what Novo did. They look at it from outside of the box, literally outside of the box, right? And it became a success,
It
right?
really is
So
revolutionary, yeah? For Trinidad and
yeah,
to
yeah. Yeah,
revolutionary.
and these products are exported all over the place. When you go to the airport, they all over the airport. Anywhere you go in the supermarkets, it's there. And I always have their products because sometimes, so like dal, sometimes I come home here and corn soup and thing like that. You're feeling for something. You don't really want to go through all the drama. And I don't think I am correct. There is no preservatives in these products. There's yeah, no chemical preservations.
So,
It's
ladies,
just process.
that just shows you the
So
power of innovation.
yeah.
Innovation.
So I mean, if you're looking for something healthy that tastes like home, you know, it's there. So when we really looking at value proposition, that is something as well that I just realized. I didn't realize that before. Um, so I think that really answers the question, about that. So if we back to the topic now, although we didn't really stray for a bad reason, um, think about how fishing communities, sometimes you go there, you're not getting fish, right? There are times in the year because of the migratory patterns and the reproduction patterns um, of of fish. You don't get certain things and the prices are high. And aside from the prices being high, it's the availability is the issue, right? These things could supplement our income because this is a sustainable product, seaweed, right? Um, Look, we have um, sea moss here. You ever see powdered sea moss? I sure we never see powdered sea moss. Powdered sea moss has a lot of micronutrients and those sorts of things, and we could put that in punch. We never thought about doing. So we need, that is why I said we need to start looking at things from outside of the box. We need to look at our value proposition. We need to look at our product offerings. We need diversification. Is not just about the government doing it. Diversification is for the people to think about how do we change what we offer for sale. And maybe if we change the presentation from dry seaweed to powder or dry sea moss to powdered sea moss, we could see sea moss becoming a lot more pronounced and a lot more present on supermarket shelves, right? We don't see sea moss on the supermarket shelves, but that now is a huge untapped potential for rural areas. And because it's a sustainable item, and I know and believe that the UNDP is actually funding some of these initiatives. So it is not to say that the people have to come up with all the money on their own and, those sorts of things. There will be grant funding and assistance that can be developed if it's not available in Trinidad already. So that deals with potential, right, of products and different things that we could be looking at. Now, if we look at to be a little bit more pointed and back to the original purpose of tonight, which was looking at the agro-processing facility that was recently opened in Brechin Castle. We have in that, I believe, 2 lines of automated root crop processing machines that could do flour, like cassava flour and those sorts of things, sweet potato flour. Now, for those things, for those types of products to be viable, you are talking about doing it in large quantities. If we are talking about doing it in large quantities, that automatically signals that the potential for highly significant increases in market for farmers, it's present. Because you can't process 4,000 pounds for the day and think that's going to cut it. No. The amount that you're going to need is probably 5 times that for it to be commercially viable, right? So when you look at the potential for farmers now to sell their produce, because remember in previous programs, we talked about the availability of markets. And the availability of markets for farmers will push production. And it is one of the ways in which farmers are looking to really to start to become a little bit more sustainable and to increase production further to what we have really seen over the last year, right? I know in past programs, we did speak about things like that. Now, what we are seeing with the presence of these equipment at Brechin Castle, the equipment is here now. They are automated lines. Now is when I believe that we should start to look at the increase in production to cater for the requirements once these machines get started. And I know NAMDEFCO has been on top of these things. They also have, their list of farmers and stuff like that. It doesn't stop anybody from becoming a registered farmer with NAMDEFCO. And I will employ people to become registered with NAMDEFCO, because when they need people to do sweet potato and vegetables and those sorts of things, for these processing lines that are there, it's the farmers on their database that they're going to reach out to, right? Because they would have had a history with these farmers, they would have been inspected already, and they know that these farmers operate in a certain way. So the potential now is very high. And I think for the first time we saw pineapple processing equipment. Remember when we had a little taste of the pineapple as well, right? Because in pineapple, you see sometimes pineapple rotting on the side of the road. Pineapple given away sometimes. Now, after you spend so many months growing a pine, when you look at the wastage that occurs from, too much pine on the market, it it could really be heartbreaking, but instead we could look at the processing of pineapple now into even packs like these, right? It doesn't have to be tinned, you know. When you go to Brazil and Argentina, um, you would find uh, uh, soursop in those packs. That someone will buy a small pack, open it, and eat it directly from the pack, right? Because obviously with the vacuum sealing and those sorts of things, it comes out very fresh. So these equipment will actually offer that potential where agricultural wastage hopefully now becomes zero, right? And I say hopefully because the farmers have to actually subscribe now to working with NAMDEFCO and the government to supply. And I think if they do, so farmers could still do their retail sales, but if they put a certain uh, portion of their crops towards supplying NAMDEFCO for these, for these machines, it could lead to zero agricultural wastage, right? So when we look at the potential that lies for these facilities, it's very high. Now, on the day that we went to the opening, I was talking to some of the staff at NAMDEFCO, and I will say it here, Lisha, I think NAMDEFCO needs to advertise a little bit more with their services. Um, there are things that I didn't know that NAMDEFCO does. And let me just throw it out here. A farmer who wants an end product, so somebody doing cassava or dasheen or whatever it may be, and he wants a peeled product that is packaged and processed in a environment where he could get his approvals, and approvals would be things like all the testing that you need to do for bacteria, your free sale certificate, which is both your testing and your label, and the visits from the health inspectors to make sure that the food is being processed in the proper environment. NAMDEFCO offers those facilities to farmers, and the price is unbeatable. Now, it means now that somebody who is growing can become a producer of an end user product without the capital investment into processing equipment and buildings and stuff like that, right? That is a phenomenal value proposition. It could change the way farmers operate. It will influence positively farmers' income and the potential to have a diversification in product offerings, meaning you should see more end user product versus dashing that is unprocessed on the side of the road that vendors have to throw away after a few days. And all these things hinge to agricultural wastage. Now, if we have a lower level of agricultural wastage, you will find that the prices over time should get lower and should stabilize. And I speak very heavily on price stabilization because sometimes we pay $2, $3 a pound, sometimes we pay $10, $15 a pound. These things could be managed with the availability of guaranteed markets. And once we have these things that could capture the weight of products before they could become wastage, it now guarantees income for farmers. So there shouldn't be those wide fluctuations in prices. And with the stability now, so you have cassava, and once you harvest a cassava, you have to sell it by a certain time. Now you could process it at NAMDEFCO, have it frozen, and preserve via freezing for months, right? So it will guard against gluts and shortages as well. So in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is that there has been an establishment of facilities that could receive goods or unprocessed goods and turn them into a finished product. And the benefits in that are tremendous. Most importantly, it would lead to price stabilization, and it would lead to produce availability stabilization. So, any questions, Lisha?
Yes, Dr. Rogers. Well, first of all, let me invite the members of the audience. If you all have any questions, I know there's some comments on the chats, right? If anybody wants to ask a question themselves or make a contribution, please feel free. We do want to have an interactive discussion here tonight. Now, Dr. Rogers, you spoke about many of the benefits of the agro-processing, right? And can't disagree with you. But every major initiative is also going to come with challenges. And what are some of the things we must get right to ensure that this facility succeeds in the long term?
Well, we need one of the most important things we need is the change in mindset. Notice we started speaking earlier about farmers and the availability of the market, but the farmers must be able to go to NAMDEVCO and say, listen, I have X amount of produce, so I want to supply you all under a guaranteed market. Not just NAMDEVCO, but there are other processors that we spoke about earlier. And if farmers really want to look at the development of their farms, and more so to ensure that they have stable incomes, we have to look at contract farming. There are global models, and when I say global models, everybody wants to be like those first world countries. Are we practicing the implements of the first world countries? Right? When you look at first world countries, you are looking at productivity, you're looking at ethics and stuff like that. But contract farming is one of the most important things that you would find in those environments that ensure sustainability of agricultural, not just produce, but agricultural practices and agricultural jobs and livelihoods and sustainability, right? So I think the most important thing that we need to get right, because we have the equipment, yes, we're not just about getting the equipment. Um, it is about our a shift in our cultural practices. Instead of just looking to go in the market 3 o'clock in the morning and selling, why not engage part of your production towards contract farming? And I'm sure if you start with it just allotting part of your produce to go towards contract farming, that gives you a guaranteed income every week or every month or every fortnight or whatever. And you will see how easy it is and how nice it is to have a stable income. Because one of the complaints of farmers will be sometimes they make money, sometimes they don't. All right, based on the prices. There was a time in which tomatoes was selling retail for 50 cents a pound. At that stage, farmers they were not harvesting the tomatoes. It was costing you more to harvest the tomatoes than to sell it. Right? Just the harvesting alone was costing more than anything else. So the most difficult and the most important thing would be that shift in mindset, but it could be managed and dealt with if farmers start by just putting aside, okay, if I do 5,000 pounds of tomatoes every month, let me put 1,500 pounds and find a guaranteed market for it. Or let me put 2,000 pounds. Or according to your appetite, let me just put 1,000 pounds and see how it works, see how I get paid. See, right, every week I know I have my money. Right? I think that is one of the most important things that we need to start developing in order to go forward.
Okay. Now, you spoke about a shift in mindset, and the Prime Minister at the launch of the agro-processing facility would have alluded to something of the same, right? And she would have said that, well, I'm paraphrasing here, of course, right? That when we think of agriculture, we think mostly of cultivation. That is how we see agriculture. But we need now to look at agriculture in terms of processing, branding, exports, and innovation, right?
Yeah.
And that is an important shift in thinking that we need in order to move forward. Donny, I don't know if you want to maybe comment on that.
Well, when we look at the shift, these things will say why there's a need for a shift and what a shift could do. You know, we just need to adjust our mindset. You, you know, they give the definition for insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result, right? So, I mean, um, if we look at doing what we do, but doing it differently and changing the way we do certain things, we will find the value that is hidden somewhere inside of there, right? And maybe the value is not selling sea moss or seaweed whole in a plastic bag on the side of the road, but all you have to do is buy a commercial blender. It might cost you some money for a commercial blender, right? But you put it in powder, you seal it in a nice bag, and you put it on the supermarket shelf. And instead of getting $10 a bag for your CMOS, for a pound, I just saying $10, you might get $40 for a quarter pound processed and in the supermarket, right? Or maybe $20. I mean, I just, saying, but there is the money is in the value addition. That is where the money is. So just taking the seaweed and drying it and putting it in a bag and putting it on the side of the road, and I'm sure there's wastage in that, right? Have we ever thought about putting it in powdered form? No, we haven't, because it's not available, right? You have so many punchmen in the whole country. Every junction you go to, you have a punchman, right? You telling me you don't have potential for sales? You have so many people who are looking after their health from a natural way, right? If there is powdered, honestly, the only reason I didn't open this is because I wanted to present it, and it's only one pack I have, and I wanted to show a couple of people it, right? So that's the only reason why I didn't open this and use it, because the benefits of seaweed and sea moss, I don't really think I need to go into that story, right? I mean, we all understand the benefits of it. So if I had powdered sea moss, I would be buying that and putting it, a lot of people in the shakes and things like that. I would be buying it and doing it. But instead, we have all there's a craze about matcha, right? We have all kind of craziness coming in the country called matcha. Some of it is rubbish and some of it good, right? But we have not even developed what we do in here. Why should we be bringing in these things that have absolutely no value to our well-being, right? Even if we look at it from a health perspective or economic perspective, when we should be focusing on what we have, right? And I think if we put focus on what we have, we will see the benefit, right? So having CMOS as an additive in your punch, you're talking about value proposition there for the punch man. You go make more money, and you're looking at potential for sale for the end product, right? See somebody, what about the technology to create the finished products? Let me answer it very simply. The technology in this, sun drying and a blender, a commercial blender, not a home blender, a commercial blender. That is all. Put it in a seal pack. That is all you need to do. So there's no real science behind it. All right. With these things, can't go into that. That is proprietary information. But let me give you a little heads up on what you could do. If you want to do a product, or you have an idea of a product that you would like to produce, but you don't know how to do it, you could go to Kariri, and their food technologists will walk you through that step and tell you how you have to do it, what's the equipment you need, and you can start to work out your cost now. I hope this answer helps with that question. I didn't see the person who I just saw the question.
All right, that's good.
Trini, so, you could unmute and...
Yes, Trini, go ahead. Yeah. So we have a few minutes left, right? So now is the time if anybody wants to make a contribution, ask a question themselves. Please feel free to put up your hands. We want to hear from you. Trini, go ahead, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good.
Interesting discussion.
Evening.
Donny, and you started speaking about the equipment that they have at Nam Benko for processing, for agricultural
Yeah.
processing. Could you elaborate on what equipment and what are the capabilities? What can you process? For example, a farmer, if I am producing pineapples or I am producing bananas or I have a plan to produce citrus, can I just say, look, okay, I'm capable of or even I'm a businessman and wanting to purchase and supply to produce a product. What is the equipment you have at to produce? For example, are you
Okay.
do you
So,
have those packaging
right.
materials
So
and so on?
I will answer that question in two ways, right? There's two answers to that. With regards to what um, items or primary products meaning unprocessed products, you could supply them with. NAMDEVCO is already and has been for numerous years processing primary products into end user products. They have more focused on root crops, and even for the export market, they have been doing basic processing of peppers for the export market. Basic processing would mean washing and destemming and those sorts of things. To go into things like pepper mash, it requires different facilities and different training and different types of PPE because you don't want to walk in a room that doing pepper mash without proper headgear and breathing apparatus and things like that, right? So as it relates to so Namdevco has been doing this already, right? This equipment though will increase their capacity to do that.
So,
It will also take them from. Go on, sorry, Trini.
yeah, instead of pepper mash, what about dehydrated pepper and making pepper powder, as you were speaking about?
Right.
So you
So
have the
processing pepper is
dehydrated
something
equipment.
different. It takes a different. I believe they have dehydrate. Yes, they do have I'm looking at a list here. They do have dehydrators. They have drying machines, everything. So they have washers, peelers, um, tumble washers for vegetables. They have a full pineapple line. They have peeling machines. And everything is automated. So their lines are automated. Now, one of the biggest difference, and I don't want to say too much on it because I know Namdevco will come out with certain things later on. One of the biggest difference that you're going to see now with this donation from the government of India is before Namdevco would have been almost semi-manual, right? Now you're going to see automated lines. With automated lines, two things happen. The volumes that they require increase, and the food safety standards change for the better, right? So let me just give you an example. They would have a drying machine that if you're processing cucumbers and stuff like that, you would use that or anything. Um, that is different to actually washing the vegetables and leaving it with a fan or a blower or whatever to dry out before it goes into further processing. Going through a drying machine, something that would take an hour to dry takes seconds, right? So you are able to control your food safety and food quality standards a lot better. So aside from just um, creating the potential for significantly increased volume requirements, you're talking about a higher degree of food safety and greater efficiencies in food processing. I hope that
So,
answers your question.
well, kinda. So basically, if I'm a pepper producer and I want to make dehydrated pepper to sell in packets like you are demonstrating there with the CMOS.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All I have to
Yeah.
do is provide you all with the pepper and you produce a product labeled with your labeling, or does it have to be my labeling?
So I don't think Namdevco is outfitted to do the full processing of pepper, because I say it's something different. I could be wrong, but I believe other than Namdevco, if you have that idea and you want to push that, I think the Kariri Food Lab could also do that for you. I'm not too sure what is the price to do that or what's the arrangement. But
Well, actually,
in
I did some
speaking to
research.
people,
India already has equipment that does everything. There's no need for any research. You just have to bring the equipment from India.
yeah. No, well, what I was going to say there, Trini, is that once the demand is there and the supply is there, supply of raw material, I know for a fact that Namdevco is taking a very aggressive approach to the development of value addition and value added products. So once enough people come and say, okay, yes, this is what we want to do, and we have the volume of pepper, it is something that will be done, right? Now, the reason why I say you must have the volumes to support it is, I mean, at the end of the day, we import pepper right now, and we import pepper mash, you know? So we need to make sure that we could grow our own peppers, because you would not want to use government facilities for an imported item, right? It kind of, erodes the whole factor behind it, right? So again, the supply must be there with the demand, and I'm sure Namdevco would consider certain things.
Right, I'm seeing a couple of questions about Namdevco on social media. The services about the group like Namdevco must be available to the public. How can we get this information? Also, somebody asked if a farmer processes his crop at Namdevco, would he have to source buyers himself? Or does Namdevco help with the sales of the processed item? Donny, I don't know if you would be able to answer these questions. I mean,
Information, call Namdevco. They have field officers. They have very good people there that can give you the information. As it relates to the markets, Namdevco will be the first to say that they do assist to find markets, but I don't think they're going to guarantee, if you want to do an end product, that they're going to take the product and market it for you. That's two different things, right? So, we need to understand that, right? We have to get the concept behind it. So they're not going to say, okay, well, I want to do powdered pepper or pepper flakes. And you come to them and say, okay, I have a field of pepper, I grow pepper, I do 10,000 pounds every month, and I want to put this into pepper flakes. Look, take it. And they have to find the market for you and do everything. No, it doesn't happen. You have to do the work. They may be able to do certain things, and I'm not too sure the extent of what they could do. And I know they do have markets and they do assist in finding markets. But the extent of it, I mean, those things, you have to work those things out.
I don't know what we can do to maybe bring more information about Namdevco and their services to our audience. Because I think that is what the questions are alluding to. People are not getting enough information. Maybe they need to go about.
Right. So maybe coming out of this in a subsequent program or follow-up program, we could look at bringing people from Namdevco. And Lisha, we just always say, so even when I am a co-host and I'm not a presenter, we always say this is the only program where you could bring someone, even minister or somebody who make decisions or somebody in a certain position in an entity, and you could talk one-on-one with them, right? So we will liaise with the officials at Namdevco, and we will do our best to bring them in so that the farmers and people who interested in an end product, or maybe doing something with what they have already, could get some answers, right? So
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, we will more than love to do something like that. And
Well, I
Lisha,
see.
yeah, go on.
No,
Yeah. Any more question?
Kurt has his hand up. So, Kurt, if you could,
Hi.
hi,
Yeah,
welcome to
good.
the program.
Okay. I have a few questions that I've already written down, but one thing I'd like to point out is that when you speak of importing pepper mash, for example, as uh, as far as I know, the reason that we import pepper mash is because it's cheaper. So it's cheaper to import it than to buy from the local farmers. If and that's one of the little problems we have. We'll have to, before we could go into processing, we'll have to find out whether our end product will be able to sell in the first place, because we uh, after we make after we buy our local products and produce it and sell it, and produce it to the finished product, um whether it will be the price will be pricing ourselves out of the market. The other
Mm-hmm.
issue I'm seeing is that is technology. What I said earlier, the meaning to know what is required, because as I gave an example, with the corn soup, I actually happen to know someone. My brother makes an excellent corn soup. I always thought if I could sell that. But
Mm-hmm.
if to produce it into something like a powder like Maggi or one of these,
Mm-hmm.
how do you get that? Now you said we could go to Kariri, but well, what would that entail? Would we have where? Who do we go to in Kariri? Like and what would, of course, what would it cost to do all that, to
Okay.
get from
So
knowledge from?
let me let me let me just take a answer for the first two questions before you go on, right? Before there's too much to answer and I don't answer.
Mhm.
On the first side, with regards to the importing of the pepper mash, we import habanero and Scotch bonnet pepper mash. We don't import any other varieties, right? That is what we import. So if we're looking at the acceptance of the taste, is the same thing that we produce here in peppers, we import it in mash, right? So if there is a need for the imported mash, obviously there is a gap that needs to be filled, and the only way we could do that and compete is to increase production so that the cost of production decreases, and we could now be a little bit more competitive with regards to processing and competing with the imported product. Right? That is the only way to do it. That is the only way to do it. Aside from dealing with it from a trade perspective, which could make things more expensive, the one way to do it is to increase production. Now, when you increase production, could people make more money? Not just the farmer, but the nursery people make more money. The agro shops make more money. The professionals in the field make more money. Everybody make more money. So why not increase production to the extent where we could start to look at pepper mash locally? There are large companies that have a shortfall every year. I can't call the names, but serious shortfalls, right? And I ain't talking about 2, 3 thousand pounds. I'm talking about over 100,000 pounds. Sometimes they have a shortfall for, right? So, exactly, Calvin. Economies of scale. I didn't want to go too technical or too academic, right? So, all we need to do, increase production, so your cost of production is less, and you benefit from economies of scale. Once you do that, you can afford to actually compete with the imports. With the other points you made about Kariri, if you go on their website, I know Kariri had grants that you could use to offset the costs of that are associated with doing certain things. So research and development, things that go with your labeling and those sorts of things, you can get grants to offset those costs. I don't have the specifics behind it, but I know they are available. Um, so, contact Kariri and they would probably be able to guide you a little bit more, or maybe look at the Ministry of Trade as well. They have some of the grants that you could use towards the offsetting of testing and those sorts of things. So look at it like that from that perspective, and you should be able to get the answers to some questions. I hope the answer was sufficient.
But do you have
yes,
any?
yes, I do. That's yes, thank you. Yeah, I'm satisfied with the answer.
Cool.
Well,
thank
you so
Glad I
much
could
for
help.
and so on. I just want to acknowledge our Senator, the Honorable Brian Begg has joined us. Senator, thank you for coming on to the program. Of course, if you want to address the audience, say, we always love hearing from you, right? Our topic tonight is developments in agro-processing, and we started off the program speaking about the launch of the agro-processing facility at Brecon Castle. Folks, on our page, Keep It Real, the Facebook page, we were present at the launch, and we did a little live tour when the Prime Minister and the Foreign Affairs, I believe it was the Foreign Affairs Minister of India, was actually touring the facility. One of the things I mentioned to Dr. Rogers is we really should try and go down there sometime and get a proper tour, of the facility, and then we'll be in a better position to respond to questions like what is the sort of machinery and so on that there is at the facility and the capacity of the facility, right? I am seeing some comments
In a
on
couple
the
of weeks,
chat
we should be able to
here.
get the tour, hopefully.
All right, okay.
Right? Don't worry, I'm working on
Interestingly
it.
enough, I know people are asking questions about Kariri, NAMDEVCO, and so on. And yes, everybody knows of these institutions, but what do they do exactly? That may not be public knowledge as it should be. So,
Yeah.
maybe that is something we can look into as well, because the purpose of
Yeah,
this program was
definitely.
always to
Definitely. Yeah.
inform and the community and whatnot, right? So I'm looking at the time now, 9:06. I'm seeing lots of comments, but I am not really seeing any questions. I do have a couple more questions, Donny, right?
Sure.
Now,
Yeah, man.
yes, we would also try and get the Prime Minister's address at the opening of the Brecon Castle Agro facility and post it up, right? She did touch on a number of different important things, and one of the things she would have spoken about is encouraging young people to see agriculture as a modern industry filled with opportunities for things like entrepreneurship and investment. Now, Donny, would you say younger people are beginning to see agriculture differently today?
So there was, let me respond to it like this. From an exercise that I was engaged in 10 years ago, Minister Jolene John, when she was the in opposition with Lahokota Talparo, she had launched a project called Project Hope. And that was a project. I was the agribusiness trainer for that project, right? And I think it's 6 or 7 phases in Lahokota. One of the guys in the class got shot 7 times and survived. And he told himself he changed in his life. And with that project, after a few weeks of training, right, it took training, we had to do a second cohort. And we had to cap it off because, resources, you're in opposition, right? Resources are not infinite. And because of that intervention by now Minister Jolene John, there was no more gang warfare during that period in La Hoqueta. The shootings had stopped. The interphase warring had stopped, because you know what happened? Because everybody together learning in a nice environment, in an enabling environment, and these guys on their own realize what is their strengths and their weaknesses. And one day the guys come to me, they was like, well, Mr. Rogers, in phase 1, I go in and do seedlings. And I go sell to the fellas in phase 2 who going to do the planting. And next fella in the next phase, he gonna have a small supply store, right? Hopefully he could grow it to be a like an agro chemical shop, right? Everybody wanted to do a different part in the agricultural value chain to leverage on the potential to make money, and they did. The harvest day was, I think, the happiest day for the youths in La Hoqueta. The joy and the happiness that was seen with all the youths in La Hoqueta was, I think, unmatched. And when I say youths, I ain't talking about 17, 18-year-old. I ain't talking about 15, 16-year-old. I'm talking about youths across 18 years old. Right? Some of them 17, 16, and things like that. But mostly everybody across 18 years old. Right? And that was, in my opinion, one of the most successful youth projects that somebody in opposition was able to achieve. And I'm not too sure if you remember when it became popular and it went on television and all kind of thing with the harvest day. The next day, the HDC put a sign on the plot that they were using, no agriculture, and they fenced it off. And when they realized the backlash, well, they moved the sign, no agriculture, but they had put a sign, no agriculture. I don't want to say anything about agriculture. I don't want to get sidetracked with agriculture over the last 10 years, but I drew that example because agriculture can be very attractive to the youths if done in the right way, right?
Yes.
It's not about giving away and false promises. Bring them into a training that could be impactful, that could create a meaningful change and a sustainable change, like what we saw in Project Hope. And once you do that, the susceptibility for these guys to go forward and be successful is higher, rather than you have to log in for 2 hours on a day and that's how you're going to learn about agriculture. No, that is not it. Sorry to hit for what was going on before, but that is the reality. You had these youth programs going on, but the program was you had to log into class 2 hours on an evening, right? You can't create the type and level and sustained change that you need with that, and I'm going to use a big word here, with that pedagogy. A pedagogy is a teaching mechanism, right? Mm-hmm. You need the hands-on approach. You need the approach that is one-on-one, because you want to ensure that everybody is touched, right? And you want to make sure that everybody understands certain things. Online learning has its limitations, right? Especially if you're looking at the change management process. So what I'm trying to say is that from the empirical evidence of that project, youths will gravitate towards agriculture and they will be very successful in it, all right? We have not seen a project like that in place afterwards. With the increase in production that I reported a couple months ago, over the first 9 months of a change in administration, the figures did go up. It is statistical, it is empirical evidence, the data is there. I just presented the data. I can't manipulate data, right? But the data is there for anybody to see. And
Mhm.
there was an increase in agricultural production. The statistics started to go up. The prices started to stabilize. So everything we're talking about here has happened over the last year, right? Over the last year was the first increase and price stabilization that we saw in quite a while, right? So the potential for youths to get involved and getting involved and becoming sustainable is very high from that experience that I had. And I think anyone, young or old, can have a very good income and a very good quality of life getting into agriculture because it's not just about planting. It is not just about that alone. Novo Farms is an agricultural company, but they're very high tech, right? There's no dirt in their floors, right? But they're agro-processor, right? So the potential for someone to really um, specialize and even looking at going in certain areas in agriculture is very high. You know, we are at the position where things are changing and that turnaround has started, and now is the time to really get your feet in. Senator, I wouldn't have you waiting, sir.
Good. Nah, man. I don't mind waiting on you. You give very good contributions to the agri sector, my friend.
Thank
And
you, thank you, sir. I appreciate that
you are a man of great wonders when it comes to this sector, pal. I am always in
thank
awe
you
in hearing you, and I know that you have a lot to offer. Good night and good night to everybody. And it was
so
nice
much.
seeing you, Donny, the other night at the Union
Yes,
High
yes,
Commission
yes, same
event.
here, sir. Hmm.
Yeah, well, like I said, I am back. I am back out.
Yes, and we
And
are
we are
looking
glad to
forward
see
to
that you're
having you.
here.
Yes, and
A
I,
lot.
I, I must congratulate my senator colleague and Minister of Agriculture, um, Minister Ravi Ratiram, for especially
Hmm.
with the agri-processing plant, which was opened the other day with the Prime Minister and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of India. As you can see, that we are having a great partnerships. We're not with not only
Hmm.
India but everywhere. But with India, look at what has been happening with the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago and the government of India with this current government.
Correct.
There has never been so much relationship like how it is now. And I must say, all of this is through the great dynamic leadership of the Honorable Capital Prasad Visasa. And we must not forget that. And it is really good to see what is happening. I think agriculture has a long way to go with this government in office. As you know, the Peter Lassie squad also got some help with this government, and I
Hmm.
think that again comes with having a very good hands-on minister, and that being Ravi Ratiram. And even when the victim rights bill that was just passed, Minister Ratiram spoke about what farmers go through, especially with that of the Peter larceny. And I just want to say
Hmm.
that agriculture has a great future with this government. And I want to say continue the good work that you're doing, Donny, along with your fellow farmers. And I always will say that when the UNC wins, everybody wins. And when the UNC wins, our farmers will win. And let us all work together. Let us stay together. Let us stand together. Do not be distracted by these naysayers. Do not be distracted by persons who never once cared about your sector. And let us be real. Let us be understanding with that. I listened to a gentleman who calls himself a farmer, but he always comes to criticize. But he will not say that with this government, look what has happened with agriculture, with our farmers, with just the budget that was just that just went. Who got subsidies? It was agriculture. Look at what has been done.
Hmm.
I mean, my God. But anyway, I don't want to bring the politics into it, but you know that's it. That's what when you have a politician on your show. But continue the good work you're doing, sir. And
Yes.
and we are always here. I'm here.
Thank
I'm
you.
always here
Thank
to
you,
assist.
Senator.
I'm here to guide if ever needed. You know, to continue the great work you all are doing.
Thank you,
Mhm.
Senator. And you know, you're
Thank
always
you.
welcome program. You know, it's an honor to get your input. Right? I'm just doing a time check. It is actually 9:19. So we have just about 10 more minutes. If anybody has any final questions or you know wants to make any final contributions, definitely now is the time. But Donny, I have one closing question for you. Oh, I see Kurt. Kurt, go ahead. Go
Sure.
ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, thanks for giving me the
No
so
problem.
as he I believe he's the
Sure.
junior minister of agriculture we had just now.
No, that was
Hey, he promote me.
No, I'm not. No, I'm just making sure I get
Congratulations, Senator.
the respectful. No, sir. What the reason? What I'm asking is there are areas of agriculture like the mushroom farming and um uh, aquaculture, aquaponics, and so on. That um if we can, there are people, a lot of people who would want to do it, but if we could get the assistance, for example, the mushroom farming, I've tried in the past, but it's very difficult to get the starter material to do it.
Mhm.
You know, so similarly for there's something called is seed where they grow seeds and they just shoots, they cut the shoots and it's popular in salads and so on. But the seeds are so expensive. So all it takes microgreens, right? Microgreens.
Well,
Yeah,
if I may,
you know,
I can tell you,
Right.
well, while I may not be a minister, and actually your junior minister of agriculture, I believe, is Minister Saddam Hussein, right? Because he's minister, I believe, as well as in the Ministry of Agriculture. I'm open to be corrected with that. But anyway, I have had a history with aquaponics, having been the former chairman of the seafood board,
I was going to touch on that, you know.
which is the seafood industry development company. But it's not a bad
Mhm.
idea. I think it's something that you all could maybe bring it to the minister's attention. Well, the one thing that you have with this minister, Ravi Rajaram, is that he gives everybody a listening ear. And I don't think it's a bad idea. But anyway, thanks for the thanks for the promotion, man. Maybe a prime minister might hear it. But
What what
anyway,
I want to say, Kurt. Oh, sorry, Senator. I thought you were done.
no, I was gonna say,
What I want to
unfortunately,
say.
now is my time to take my tablets. So let me leave you all.
No,
You all have a good evening. Good show as always. I will tune in again. Take care. You all have a good night.
have a good night, Senator. Thank you for being here.
Sure,
yes.
sure.
Yeah. So, Kurt, what I wanted to say is mushroom, from my research and study, is a very technical issue, right? Based on the type of mushroom that you want to grow. Um, the most technically inclined type would be the most commonly used or bought type, which is the white button mushrooms and the brown button mushrooms. And to show you how India could actually uh, influence that for us, um, there is a body called the DMR, and that is the Directorate of Mushroom Research. And they do all the training courses in India for their citizens who want to go into mushroom production. And let me tell you how common mushroom production is in India, although we take it as very technical, right? Long ago, you see them old ladies and them in Shawanas market with a market bag on their head and they're walking on the road. I have seen people like that in India be very successful in growing mushrooms and supporting their family financially, right? So it is something that can happen. And maybe we need to put a little bit more leverage into the opportunities for training now with India, to really look at products or items like that. And let me tell you why mushroom. And I like the fact that you raised the issue with mushrooms. The CARICOM region imports, I believe, about 55 million US dollars, no, TT dollars, in mushroom and mushroom products every year. That is the value of mushrooms in the CARICOM region, right? And whilst it may be a little bit capital intensive to start growing, financially it's very viable. It's something that could make some good money for you. And it's an area that goes hand in hand with rice production, because you need the straw from the rice to actually be the substrate or the growing medium for the mushroom. So, but that may take a little bit of time because of the technical nature of it. But I could see that being one of the products that that we could leverage on if we want to look at the whole question of curbing our food import bill and increasing our forex earning capacity. All right. But you could do some research. You could Google Directorate of Mushroom Research. It's in a city named Solan in a state called Himachal Pradesh. And you could Google it, DMR, Directorate of Mushroom Research, and you could go on and see all their training programs, and you'll see how cheap it is to actually do those programs. It's very, very cheap. I mean, the most important, the highest cost in that is actually traveling, right? But the cost itself, it's very cheap.
Okay, well, you know, they say time flies when you're having fun. It's actually 9:26. So, Rogers, I think I'd like to invite you at this point for any closing remarks you may have.
Right. So, I also sit as the chair of the Food and Agriculture Committee at the Trinidad and Tobago India Business Federation. And that business federation, we try to influence the positive development of our agricultural sector based on the successes that India has. And when I say that, we all know about the steel revolution and the industrial revolution and things like that went through many years ago with the British and Europeans and things like that, right? In 1976, India had a white revolution, and that revolution was based on milk. Milk saved that country from famine. Conceptualize what that means for a country like India. So their agricultural capacity is very high. They are very self-sufficient. With that aside, on the 5th of June, and we'll probably put the invite when we finalize it, I am having a seminar along, so the president of the federation is Dr. Valmiki Arjun. Everyone knows him. He's a very respected economist and UWI lecturer. And together we are putting together a seminar at the Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Cultural Cooperation in Mount Hope that specifically focuses on how the successes of Indian agriculture could positively influence our development. And I think we really have to look at that conversation. It's not like we, and I want to say this, it's not like we pushing an Indian thing. It's not no foolishness like that. We are looking at the successes of one country to influence our development. And the reason why we're doing that is that we have to understand where we are at right now. You know, our food import bill is $7.2 billion. From that, from my research, we could save half of that, because there are certain things that we just can't produce to compete with the imported. And when I did an analysis of it, it's probably about half. So we have $3.5 billion in potential for the agricultural sector to earn. And not the sector, the people in the sector to earn. So when we look at the potential of the agricultural sector, it means that citizens of Trinidad and Tobago have the potential to earn $3.5 billion in addition to what they're earning right now every year, if we want to hit the food import bill, right? That will not just reduce the food import bill, it will increase employment, it will reduce the reliance on Forex, it will make things a lot better. No pun intended, but the agricultural sector is the lowest hanging fruit to achieve diversification and an economic turnaround, right? When we just look at it from that simplistic point of view of what we spend and what we could save, it's there. And the impact in that is almost immediately, right? So that is why we want to put on this, that is why we are going to put on this seminar. It will be limited seating because there's only so much people we could have. We will put the invite, but the invite we will cap off at a certain amount, right? So at some point in time on the Keep It Real page, we'll put the invite. You all will be required to register, but I'm telling you, we will have it capped off. More than likely, we will also do live Zoom link so that those who can't come in person could, could really, look at it. I see Calvin made a comment, spinning top and mud about something. I don't, you could expand on that. I'm not too sure if it's something I need to respond to. That is what I'm not.
Well, it says here, Calvin says here, we spend it up in mud if private financial investors, banks, markets, etc., not investing in agro and agro production in Trinidad. Do you know that they aren't?
Republic Bank has the has an agricultural loan that takes in consideration the nature of the sector, right? So it's a loan that is a lot more relaxed with the requirements. So, you may want to look at that. I can't go into this, but there are certain things that we're looking at as well, certain conversations that we are having to try to influence that change as well. So, Rome wasn't built in a day. We are coming out from a 10-year period of very low productivity. When government changed, our agricultural output was about 50% lower than pre-COVID levels, right? When we look at, and I always give this example, I don't have a bottle around, but if we look at the dairy sector, I'm a dairy processor, so I'll talk about that a little bit. We produce about just over ½ liter of milk per person per year. So if we were not importing, because of where our production level is, each person would get ½ liter of milk for the year. That is where we are at. We importing about $335 million in milk every year. Think about our local farmers earning that. And not just the farmers who in the system now, new farmers as well. Think about the potential for people to earn that kind of money, right? But I agree, Calvin. This is something I always speak about, strategic agricultural financing. We need that approach in an emerging type economy like ours, especially for a small island developing state. So I will agree with you. We need strategic agricultural financing in order to really get to where we need to be agriculturally, right?
Okay, that's it.
Anything else I would need to respond to? Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay, so I think we can wrap up. So ladies and gentlemen, I know some of you all have been with us for the entire program. Thank you so much for staying throughout the length of it. Right, our topic tonight has been developments in agro-processing, and I want to sincerely thank Dr. Donny Rogers, agripreneur, consultant, and the title I'm most proud about, my co-host, for joining us tonight. Knowledge and insights into this very important topic of Agro-Processing. And I think we could all agree, this has been a very interesting, informative, and even inspirational program. I know I learned so much, and I'm sure our listeners and viewers and so on would agree with that. I also want to thank the Honorable Senator Brian Begg for tuning in. The senator isn't 100% well, but he always comes on the program and he gives us a little bit of moral support and so on. So I sincerely want to thank Senator Brian Begg for tuning in and also sharing some of his insights. Thank you to the viewers and listeners for tuning in. You all are why we keep this program going. I want to sincerely thank you all for your interest in this program. We had some very good questions, some very good insights and comments from you all tonight. So sincerely, I want to say thanks. Let's keep that up. We want to keep the national discourse going. And I think what I have left to say is stay safe. Tune in again next week, Tuesday at 8 p.m. for another episode of One-on-One. Take care and good night, folks.
Have a good night, everyone.